Canon Nicholas, I just want to thank you for always hosting this event here. And it really is one of the special nights in the year, certainly for me, and I know for many of the people who come, because it's the way of celebrating really triumph over adversity. The success stories of wonderful people who apply themselves to education and learning, having come out of their own homelands, having had to flee, having experienced torture, having experienced some of the things that we just don't want to have to imagine happening to another human being. And yet they come here and they come into our midst and they teach us about our common humanity. And you make that happen, and I want to thank you. So here, please, let's sing. On your timetable, you'll see that it says guests arrive, and then there'll be the speeches and presentation, and it's Sir Henry Brooke is up there at the top of the list, and as he should be. You have to understand that Sir Henry Brooke was one of our great judges in the Court of Appeal. In fact, it was very terrifying going in front of him as a mere lawyer. We used to go there, and we used to have to tug our forelocks and plead with him. But of course, he was ultimately the great judge, humane and merciful, appropriately merciful, and always concerned to be fair. But the wonderful thing is that Sir Henry Brooke is now the chair of Prisoners of Conscience and helps to really make it happen and gives great support to Lynn and to her staff. And I want to again say in front of all of you, thank you, Henry, for everything that you do for Prisoners of Conscience. As for me, I'm this woman here. My husband says I've become prematurely blonde, which is true. But that is me, not very long ago. And I have the great privilege of being a patron of this extraordinary organisation. And I really do see it as being a privilege in which I have the opportunity of meeting with amazing people doing amazing things. And there are a number of them in this room tonight. But there are, as well as our students, whose lives can be turned around by having the opportunity of receiving a bursary and making it possible to carry on studying, to feel again that you can make a contribution to society, that somehow that your worth is not disappearing along with the suffering that you've gone through. And so I want to also pay a tribute to the people who make all of this happen, the people who provide funding for the bursaries. A number of them are present in this room. People who make donations, people who help us tap into funds of money which are in foundations or wherever. People whose generosity of heart means that the Prisoners of Conscience bursary scheme can operate. And I want to just thank each of you who know who you are in this room, who make all of that happen, and to pass on to those who couldn't be here but who also helped to make it happen, and to tell the stories of the successes that we know about here. I always think that I could be Scheherazade, who told all those stories of 1001 Nights. To remember the story of the princess who was married and whose husband said that she would be beheaded in the morning to be replaced by another newer wife. But she always was able to keep his interest by telling him a new story. Well, I feel that I always hear new stories when I come to Prisoners of Conscience. Incredible stories. Stories that, make, on one hand, your blood curdle when you hear about how people suffer, how people who stand up for what is right, who seek to make things better for their fellow citizens in the countries in which they live, people who criticize their governments, or people who just organize and who end up facing the most terrible torture and abuse, the terrible violation of their rights, sometimes violations which just don't bear recounting. And having gone through all of that and managed to flee, what is incredible is that those people in our midst tonight remain so intact, so human, and so able to continue to reach out to other people. I was only a second talking to one of the women who's here, who spoke about how she set up a project supporting other women who've gone through these experiences. And it's that incredible thing. And sometimes people say, what is it that makes it possible for people to survive such horrors? And sometimes it's about some kind of candle that's lit in a child when they're very small, that gives them the reserves and the resources and the faith to be able to survive terrible, terrible experience. But what also makes it possible for people to survive is knowing that they have the support of others. And that's why tonight is a celebration of not only the triumph of the human spirit, but the ways in which our community of support systems can actually help to make lives worthwhile. So I really wanted to have the opportunity of saying all of that to you before we start the award ceremony. I have to make the regretful claim that I can't be here for the whole of this evening, because tonight there is a debate taking place in the House of Lords which is about the cuts. And I'm afraid that I, like so many people, and particularly people working in education, working with people who are disadvantaged, are very fearful about what this new climate of cuts is going to mean for perhaps some of the most needy and disadvantaged in our society. And so taking part in that debate and being there in that debate is actually a rather important thing for me to be doing tonight. And so it's about being torn in two directions. And so I wanted to, as always, not say no to either, but make it possible to do both. And so I hope it doesn't mean that I'm shortchanging you by not being able to stay. It is in no way a reflection of my warmth and feeling for the people who are part of this organisation. And in fact, I think it is one of the great organisations doing such precious